The Indianapolis Motor Speedway for 77 years has been the capital of speed. These long straightaways and mildly banked turns have beckoned man with a single challenge: run faster. Speed is the essence. But last year, the reward of speed was disaster. Car after car, driver after driver found himself a helpless passenger. For some, the results of speed were painful days in a hospital. But this year has been the safest ever. A week of practice with only 2 small incidents. The main reason for the speed and safety are the tires. And Rick Mears, now searching for a 3rd Indy win, threw down the challenge as he poked the nose of his Penske through the 220-mile-an-hour barrier early in the week. It was the same each day. And yesterday, he ended the practice with a lap at 221.456 miles an hour. But Mears is not alone past 220. Each day, Mario Andretti has kept pace with Mears, running faster and faster. Mario can tell you 221 miles an hour is very fast.
You have a pretty good idea because looking at the numbers on my tach coming off the corners, obviously that spells speed. And knowing just how quickly I arrive at certain points, I knew that I was there quicker than I ever had experienced before. So that's important. That's the tip right there.
Mario spent his week above 220, and yesterday ended practice with a speed identical to Rick. But can that speed be repeated?
If the sun shines, I don't think we can reproduce 221 for qualifying. However, if we get any little bit of overcast, beautiful cloud up there, we might just be able to reproduce it.
It'll all be decided today in the run for the pole.
Your attention, please. The track is open for qualification.
And the engine has fired on the very first car to qualify for time trials for the 72nd running of the Indianapolis 500. And it is none other than Mario Andretti. His white Lola car number 6 is ready to go. I'm Paul Page with Bobby Unser, and Bobby, being on the pole, being first, is extremely important.
It's always been important in Indianapolis. This is the biggest, greatest race in the world, Paul. It's very important, and it's always been important, especially to this man, Mario Andretti, who was lucky enough to draw number 1 today.
Tyler Alexander, the team manager, Tony Cicality, their aerodynamicists, watch and step aside as Mario Andretti rolls out on the racetrack, ready for a qualification attempt, the very first one in time trials at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It is a complex process, and to explain it is Jack Arute.
Paul, it's unique in world motorsports. What you do here is go through this line, through tech inspection, and then you present yourself to qualify. Then you're allowed not 1 or 2 laps to qualify, the better of the 2 being your qualifying speed. You're required to turn in 4 consecutive laps, 10 miles around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. At any time during those 4 laps, you are allowed to waive off your qualifying attempt. But remember, you only get 3 tries with each car. So there's a lot happening down here, and there's a lot of pressure. For more on the mood, let's turn to my colleague, Brian Hammonds. Brian?
Jack, there was a lot of excitement in Mario's pits in practice this morning. Raul Boisel spun right behind Mario, hit the wall in turn 4. Andretti came through unscathed. He went on to run 18 hot laps, his best being clocked at better than 220 miles per hour. Mario said after practice he was happy with his outing. But then Rick Mears goes out, does 222. He's got to be thinking about that right now. Paul?
So Mario Andretti picks up the speed on the main straightaway. He has 2 laps to run before he starts his 4-lap qualification run. So now, as he heads into the second turn, he is just a little over a half a lap away from taking the green flag on this very first qualification run. And what a Cinderella story, a storybook here. Mario Andretti, who has been so fast all week, Bobby Unser, to be the very first man to qualify. But with the heat of the day, will that hurt him?
No, Paul, right now it's still very cool. I was just outside, and it's still a little bit nippy. Not hot, not cold. The sun has not had time enough to warm the pavement up.
The green flag in the hands of the starter, Dwayne Sweeney, and Mario Andretti has begun a qualification attempt, the very first one at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Carefully down into that first turn. You can almost tell how fast Mario is capable of driving by how close he comes to the wall. He slingshots out and comes within inches.
Now, he'll try harder right now during qualifications to use all of the racetrack than he ever will in the race. If you watch when he comes out of the turn, he gets very close to the wall, very close going in to get his apex just exactly right. Into turn 3, out very close to the wall in the short chute.
Mario Andretti steers it off of number 4. There's a little extension of the wall where the wall moves out 6 inches. Mario once told me that on a run like this, he will put the right rear tire up in that 6 inches. The first lap is now complete as Mario Andretti flies across the line. On lap number 2, the first lap at 217.014 miles an hour. The single lap track record is 217.581. So Mario Andretti is running slightly below the track record.
Well, but he's still a little bit what could be, or above what could be the average, Paul. They don't have as many warm-up laps as they used to have. They're one shy, and it takes these cars a little bit. It's like a flywheel to get up to speed. It takes a little bit of momentum to go.
As Mario Andretti approached turn 3 on that last lap, he was traveling at 225 miles an hour. That should be the fastest speed. There is Mario's crew as they give him a board with information, though in reality, Bobby, about all Mario can do is lock his knee, put his foot to the ground, and hope that it comes fast.
That's slower, Paul. This lap is 215. My guess is what Mario will do is they'll just opt to call this off and go out a little bit later. Maybe the wind changed just a little bit, although we have very little breeze right now, but he might just opt to go on about 5 o'clock.
215.059 miles an hour on the second lap. The average speed to this point, 216.032. The crew standing by the track side on the grass strip between the pits and the main stretch has the opportunity to call this run off by simply waving a yellow flag. They choose not to do so. They continue to flash speeds to Mario. Tyler Alexander, the crew chief, continues to watch. He is on his 4th lap. Lap number 3 came in at 213.980 miles an hour. Mario Andretti averaging 215.334.
You can watch him running under the white line and the yellow line in the middle of the turn, Paul, and this is an indication that he's got a front-end pushing problem. The car is just understeering just a little bit.
Well, Mario Andretti now in the final moments of his qualification run, averaging just over 215, not the speed that we saw in practice. He comes to the main stretch. Will they accept this run? Indeed they will. A bit of a surprise, Bobby Unser, but Mario Andretti completes his qualification run. 4 laps, 10 miles. The final lap at 212.761 miles an hour. The average for 4 laps, 214.692.
That third lap or the 4th lap, Paul, only being 212 miles an hour means that he just does have a front-end pushing problem, and we'll hear from Mario when he comes in, but I totally am surprised that they took that.
The crew appears to be surprised as well, as the first 4 official laps are into the record books for the 72nd running of the Indianapolis 500, the time trials at the great Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Mario Andretti has live. ABC Sports presents the first day of time trials from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's the run for the pole from the world's greatest race course. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and action already underway. Mario's run occurring just about 1 hour ago. A great deal coming up and a real chance that the record held by Rick Mears will be broken sometime this afternoon. But we're going to be here all afternoon. If action occurs here, we'll have it. But it's not only time trials on ABC Sports this afternoon. We have a grand lineup for you. Let's begin by going to Irving, Texas, and Jack Whitaker.
Well, Paul, we've got a lot of excitement here at the Las Colinas TPC course. At the end of the second round in the GTE, Byron Nelson, one of Baja, Oklahoma's favorite sons, was leading by 2 strokes. Ben Crenshaw, just a few moments ago, he teed off. He used an iron today on the first tee. Yesterday, he used a driver and almost drove the green, but this one worked out perfectly for him. Crenshaw was 9 under par at the end of 2 rounds. His tee shot here today, right down the middle. His second shot even better. He had this putt now for a birdie to go 10 under. And that's what happened. He leads by 3 right now, but they're shooting very low scores. Paul Azinger is already in with a 63. Course record may be in jeopardy and a lot of excitement ahead. And now, to find out what's going to happen in today's wide world of sports, let me take you to our colleague, Lynn Swan. Lynn?
Jack, the International Invitational Diving Championships at the Mission Bay Aquatic Center in Boca Raton, Florida is expected to be very close. The weather, in a word, steamy. Thunderclouds are threatening this afternoon. All we can do is hope and wait it won't stop the competition. The best divers from around the world are here to test their talents in the last major international tune-up in the U.S. before the Summer Olympics. America's best diver, Greg Louganis, who has already won the 1-meter springboard competition but will not compete in the 10-meter platform due to an injury. He will be with us live this afternoon for an interview. But right now, let's head north to Jim McKay at Pimlico.
Lynn, we have a rematch of last year's most exciting race, the Haskell, here today in the Pimlico Special. Ali Shiva, winner of last year's Derby and Preakness, there he is, and undefeated this year, will meet Bet Twice, the 1987 Belmont winner by 14 lengths, winner of the Haskell also. And Lost Code, the speedster, who led in the Haskell until the final stride. These 3 meet again in the revival of the Special after a 30-year absence. Now let's go to Paul Page in Indy.
Oh, we're back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you're watching now the defending 500-mile race champion, Al Unser, who is now on the second lap of his qualification run, his first lap at 215.095 miles an hour.
Well, Paul, you can watch him. He has a real good line. Al's been up to 218 so far this month. Right now, you can just watch his line. He's not having the customary problem that some of the other cars have of pushing the front end and having to cut under the white line.
Of course, Al is a man who likes the car to be absolutely perfect. He doesn't want any surprises.
No, and these cars this year are really sensitive to aerodynamics. They're seeing speeds faster than we've ever seen before in our life. But by the same token, the cars can get off just as easy.
Al Unser, lap number 2 now complete. He works lap number 3, the first lap, 215. Then he brought the speed up, now running at 216.258 miles an hour.
Well, that's a good speed. We've seen Mario, who went out earlier. He had a few problems. His speeds dropped every lap. Now, this is the first car that we've seen so far today that's actually gained the second lap.
So Al Unser Sr., this is a Penske car, the first time in 4 years that the Penske team has had a Penske chassis ready to go and run fast at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Derek Walker and the crew stand up on the grass and between the pits and the main stretch. They watch the times. They could opt to wave him off should they choose, but I don't think so with this run.
No, if he doesn't have something bad happen, I promise you, he'll be staying with it, Paul. But here we have a lap 215, which is the third lap around. That's still very good. And incidentally, we expect Rick Mears to run faster later on, but this could still remain on the pole depending on what the wind does today.
Averaging to this point just over 216 miles an hour as Al Unser, the defending Indianapolis champion, carrying number 1, denoting that position, screams toward the line. They take the run, and Al Unser has qualified for the Indianapolis 500.
He had a perfect line all the way around. That was really exciting. I'll bet you he really feels good, Paul.
Well, no doubt we're going to have a great day of activity here at the Indianapolis 500 as Al Unser now slows it down as he's completed his run. 4 laps at an average speed of 215.2 miles an hour. That last lap at 214 miles an hour. So at 215 miles an hour as an average, that should make Al Unser the pole sitter for the moment.
Well, it will, and of course, we have a good day. Everybody should just know that we really have nice weather here at Indianapolis, one of the best we've ever seen qualifying. There's Al coming in, and I'm certain all the guys are going to enjoy this good weather. It's nice and cool.
So now the new pole sitter. Mario was out first, held the pole while several other cars made their attempts. But now you saw it live as Al Unser, Chevrolet Power, a Penske chassis, sat on the pole. The Indianapolis 500 time trials are brought to you by Head and Shoulders, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. By Sears, where there's more for your life. By Goodyear Eagle Tires, Goodyear, because there really is a difference. And by Miller High Life, brewed to be smooth, never bitter. Takes time to make, time to enjoy. We're back live at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Paul Page with Bobby Unser, Jack Arute, and Brian Hammonds, and you're looking at Michael Andretti. He is beginning to warm his machine up, ready for a qualification run. Already, we have had 5 qualifiers here at the Speedway, and you saw it just a moment ago as Al Unser, the defending 500 champion, averaged 215.2 miles an hour to move into the #1 position. Now remember, that's provisional. The fastest guy of this day will end up in that #1 position. But here's the way they set to the moment. Row 1, Al Unser, and alongside is Mario Andretti, and Kevin Kogan will sit to the outside of the front row. All of this will change throughout the day, and you'll see it all here on ABC. In the second row now is Tom Sneva, and alongside our first rookie qualifier, Scott Atchison.
Scott did a good job. We're going to question the 205 miles an hour, whether it's going to stay or not, Paul. That's going to be interesting to watch all day.
Now, here are some of the names, the greatest names in the sport still coming up to qualify. Mears, Sullivan, Ray Hall, Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti. We're watching Michael on the track right now. Now let's go down into the pit area. Al Unser is with Jack Arute.
And Paul, Al Unser has literally started off this year where you left off at Indianapolis, on top. But can you sustain it? Do you think that's going to be fast enough for the pole?
Well, no, I don't. I think I know that Rick Mears will go by me, and Sullivan's running very quick, and there's a few others that's, you know, in the makings of being able to do it. We'll just have to wait and see.
What about the track conditions? We understand that some of the early going, that it was slick, it was hot. They really weren't as conducive as they were all during the week.
No, the track has changed a lot. It's funny, I didn't think it would change that much, and we made some changes to the car that we hoped would go along with it, and it did, but we didn't make enough.
Well, he made enough to temporarily sit on the pole, though, Paul Page.
For the moment, at least. The last time he was on the pole was 18 years ago in 1970 at 170 miles an hour. 18 years ago and 45 miles an hour slower. Michael Andretti has taken the green flag, is in the first turn now, heading for the short chute as he begins his qualification attempt. He has never been on the pole here. His best start at the Indianapolis 500 was from the outside of the front row in 1986.
And we've watched Michael struggling a little bit all week. He's been fast one day and a little bit slower the next day. This morning I watched him when he was a little bit slow, a little bit fast. And I think it's more of an indication, Paul, of how touchy the cars have been in the aerodynamic part this year. The tires. Absolutely. The Goodyear tires are making the cars go tons faster, but they seem to be a little bit sensitive with the air.
Michael Andretti has had 4 races here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Lap number 1. Field average to this point is 210.594 miles an hour, and Michael Andretti completes his first lap at 209.766 miles an hour. Again, a slow speed, but when you consider what he has been doing in practice, the fastest, Bobby, that he has gone under totally ideal conditions is 212. He has a March chassis, and they seem to be struggling a little harder. That's part of the story that we will be covering this afternoon. The chassis story, March versus Lola versus Penske, and the engine story as well.
Very definitely. The March car, if we remember last year, had some problems adapting to the new radial tires of last year. But this year, the March cars seem to be really quick on the short track.
There's
not
his
quite
crew,
as quick
Barry
on the
Green. Barry Green, the crew chief, watches as Michael Andretti comes down the straightaway. They flash a time to him. They actually measure that time up in the 4th turn so that they can anticipate what the time will be when they get to the line, should they need that information for a wave-off.
Well, with the new stopwatches, it gives you instant time and speed together, so they're able to do that real easy. Backstretch speed, 215 miles an hour, unofficial. Now, that really isn't an awful lot of speed for a car today. They should be up in the 220 bracket.
Second lap in at 210. He picked it up just a bit. 210.315 miles an hour. The average speed for Michael Andretti to this point is 210.040.
210 is going to be plenty fast. It's not going to set on the pole, but it's going to be a good time today, I think, Paul.
Keeping it at 210, the third lap complete at 210.585. Picks the average up to 210.2. On the backstretch, Michael Andretti, the car number is 18. It is a 1988 March. It is powered by a Cosworth racing engine.
Cosworth is one of the engines that we used to have an awful lot of here at the Speedway. We still have a lot of them, but they're slowly fading on the power department.
I suspect that the team will, in fact, take this speed as Michael Andretti comes onto the main straightaway, completing his fourth and final lap. And the checkered flag flies. Michael Andretti has now completed a qualification run at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The final lap at 210.069 miles an hour. His average for the 4 laps, 210.183 miles an hour. And that should be good enough to put Michael Andretti on the outside of the front row. So Michael Andretti becomes the 6th qualifier at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. On the pole, for the moment at least, is Al Unser. We'll be back with more live from Indianapolis. We're back at time trials at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The run for the pole, the crowd in a truly festive mood. They don't give the official attendance here at the Speedway ever, but the best guess today might be in excess of 200,000 folks crowding into this giant stadium. We are qualifying, and so far there have been 10 cars presented at the line. 9 of those passed inspection. Johnny Rutherford did not and was forced to pull out of the line. 3 cars waved off, and we have 6 qualified. The fastest of those 6 so far, Al Unser, the defending champion. But one of the cars that had a problem when he tried to get started was Bobby Rahal. Now Brian Hammonds has that story.
Well, Bobby Rahal was in tech, and then he had a broken fuel pump cable. He flunked tech inspection. They put him at the end of the line. You can see Bobby back here now passing the time as his crew makes some repairs to the car. He will be okay. He'll be back out later today.
We saw Michael Andretti as we take a look at Bobby Rahal holding a conversation on the wall, certainly disappointed with the fact that he was not able to present the car. They spend Bobby all morning getting up, getting ready to do this, trying to back time themselves to the moment when they will actually qualify.
Well, they certainly do, Paul. And let me just make a note on that real quick with Rahal's problem. The fuel pump in this particular car, or these cars, don't set on the engine like we think fuel pumps do on normal cars. It actually sets away from the engine. It's got a cable that runs it.
There's another great view of this massive crowd that is here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway today. Well, you know, during May here at Indianapolis, there is a very special time. It comes at the end of the day when the track is cool, the winds are calm, and the speeds are fast. Well, yesterday, Jack Arute took us back and walked through the happy hour.
It's 5 o'clock in Indianapolis. 1 hour to go. It's what we Speedway fans lovingly call the happy hour.
When the sun starts to set and the temperatures go down, speeds tend to go way up. That's why the last 60 minutes of every practice day is called the happy hour.
For the guys that can go fast, it makes them happy. And the guys that don't, it makes them sad.
When the cars come out for the last run of the day, drivers want one thing, to post the fastest time of that day. Although the only prize is pride and perhaps a psychological edge.
When you try to measure up with the caliber of a Rick Meir or the Penske team, and if you can outdo them in that moment, yes, pride does set in.
There's definitely a lot of pride in being on top at the end of the day. Even though it doesn't pay anything each day, definitely a lot of pride.
This week, happy hour was the backdrop for a duel between Rick Mears and Mario Andretti. Neither wanted to leave the track while the other could possibly post a faster time. Mears was the first to set the standard on Wednesday when he posted a time of 220.967 miles per hour. But the next day, Andretti came back at 221.565. And then last night, the story took one more turn during the draw for today's qualifying order.
Here we go. One.
The Mears team didn't have the same kind of luck, though, pulling a much later start.
5, Rick Mears, here we go. 61st position. 61.
The draw over, and the practice is finished. Last night, all that remained were the pit crews, working into the late hours, hoping somehow to recapture for just a few laps today that magic and euphoria of speed that's called the happy hour.
And you know what's astounding about happy hour at the Speedway? On an ordinary practice day, there is a crowd here that is larger than the attendance at most races around the world. Let's go to the pits now. Michael Andretti has completed his qualification run. You saw it. He's now with Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, just a moment ago, Michael Andretti said if it would rain right now, I'd be happy. I don't blame you. You'd be planked on the outside of the front row, but do you think you're going to stay there?
I don't think I'm going to stay there. You know, realistically, I'll probably be about, hopefully in the top 10. You know, that's what we're hoping for.
What about your expectations for this year? You know, you came highly touted over the last couple of years, but you still really haven't been able to get on track thus far in the season. What about Indy?
Well, Indy's been tough for us for some reason, but you know, the first two races, I think we were a lot closer than a lot of people thought, and but here at Indy, we've been struggling a bit, and you know, we still have 2 weeks to go before the race, and hopefully we'll get it figured out.
Well, you can be sure that he'll be looking for a spot at that start-finish line. In fact, when you talk about the start-finish line, you're looking at a yard of bricks, and that's all that remains of the track that was built back in 1911. There's been some 54 different drivers that have crossed that line to go to IndyCar immortality, but no finish was any more famous than that back in 1982.
Sam, we've got a trophy dashed to the finish line. If this stays this way, there's never been anything like it. The closest finish in the history of Indianapolis was in 1937, 2.16 seconds. There's Dina Mears. Her man is the man that's closing on the leader.
Yep. Look at Mears pour it on, Jim. I know when you're this close, I mean, you can reach out, you can feel that guy ahead of you. And look at Mears now. Here's John Cox taking a fairly moderate line, and Mears is catching him. Look at his speed off that turn.
I've never seen anything like it. There they go. 2 laps to go. There's time to catch him if he can do it. Rick Mears, his wife. The stopwatch, 0.63 seconds between them.
I don't have to tell you what's going to happen if he catches him. It's going to be, I mean, this is extremely dangerous business right here.
I don't think I've ever seen an open-wheel car race with people this close at the finish.
No, and never so fast. I mean, these laps in the high 190.
Look at this.
Cena there. All right.
He may do it.
Yeah, he may. He's that close. Look at that shallow line.
They're going to get the white flag. There'll be 1 lap to go. As he moves along, tries for John Cox. Is he going to do it? The white flag out. This is the final lap.
Going down into the first turn. What? No. Gordon held him off there going into that first turn.
Over the roar of the engines, you can hear the 400,000 people going hoarse.
All right.
No one has ever seen this before in Indianapolis.
This is the back straight, Jim. There's 2 turns to go now. Mears behind, and he's again trying to slipstream it.
John Cox did a good job of staying ahead of him in turn 1 when he made that move there.
Good.
That
was
may be
brilliant.
enough.
That was brilliant.
Not quite over. John Cox still with the lead.
Here it comes
Headed
again.
for the finish line. He's still closing. That's his wife.
It's too late now. You only got to pray. Look at that.
There you see them. Mears. Can he make a move at the finish? He's making a move. No, not quite. Gordon Johnson has won the Indianapolis 500. He won it by less than a car length. Less than a car length after 500 miles. The disappointed wife of Rick Mears there. Wow. The jubilation in the pits, the Pat Patrick pits. Gordon Johncock has won it. He held on in the closest finish in the history of the Indianapolis 500. 66 races. Never anything like this. That's Roger Penske's wife, Kathy, consoling Dina Mears. Well,
what could you say to somebody after
I guess
that?
we did get carried away, Sam, but well, somebody else might be able to help it. I couldn't.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Jim, it's the victory of a great racing driver who made a great racing move.
Let's look at that finish again.
All right. Well, here is.
It looks like he's beaten at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Coming out of the last turn.
Yep. There's nothing but frustration there.
Now watch this. Making the move as they come to the finish line. There's Mears moving up, and it was just a little over a car length, about 20 feet.
And to this day, that remains the closest finish in the history of the Speedway. So more qualifying coming up at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The run for the pole, the first day of time trials. We'll be back. We're back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as the green flag flies for the number 22 car of Dick Simon. At age 54, he is the oldest man to attempt to qualify for the 500-mile race this year. The car is a 1988 Lola. It's powered by a Cosworth. Should he qualify, he will qualify for his 17th Indianapolis 500.
Notice when he came out of turn 1, Paul, he
an hour. And didn't feel that was nearly good enough. And then yesterday, a breakthrough came, and the car practiced at 210.8 miles an hour. So they've decided that is more than sufficient to try and make it into this field, and that seems to be a good judgment. The first lap now complete, but back to that speed we mentioned earlier. The first lap for Dick Simon at 206.503 miles an hour.
He's starting to cut across the corners just a little bit. Looks like maybe he's having a little bit of a front-end pushing problem like some of the other cars have had.
Dick Simon moves on the 2.5 miles of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The main stretch, the back stretch, both 5/8 of a mile long. The turns banked just a tick over 9 degrees as he comes onto that long main straightaway, completing lap number 2 of a qualification run.
Using more of the track than most of the drivers. If you notice when he goes in, see how he's in the gray a little bit with his right front tire. Getting across, down to the white lines, across them just a little bit. Now watch how close he comes to the wall. There you go. 6 inches from the wall. Is that all he had, Paul?
Lap number 2 at 206.28 miles an hour. The average, 206.3 miles an hour. Dick Simon on the backstretch now.
Down the backstretch at about 219 miles an hour. Cosworth powered.
His best start in the Indianapolis 500. Last year, started in 6th position. So far, 7 people have qualified as we take a look once again at the lap 2 speed and the average, and Dick Simon takes the white flag, indicating 1 more lap to go on this 4-lap, 10-mile qualification attempt. 4 laps around the 2.5 miles that are Indianapolis.
You can see the car wiggle just a little bit as he comes across the short chutes.
Dick Simon at 206.413 miles an hour, so he picks it up from the second lap just a bit. He is now averaging 206.398 miles an hour. The machine is a Lola powered by a Cosworth, a 16-year veteran of the Indianapolis 500.
There's almost no wind blowing. The track, the only difference that we're going to get is the sun just baking down on the track. That's a wave off, Paul, which means they don't feel that 206 miles an hour is just going to do it to make the show. We've been talking about that all morning.
So Dick Simon waves off. 1 attempt will be counted against his car. He will have 3 opportunities to try and qualify. Well, the man, of course, that everyone is talking about is Rick Mears. He is the other man that has been well above 220 miles an hour. In fact, in the morning practice, Rick Mears ran a lap, unofficially, of course, at 222.8 miles an hour. There he is, and he's with Jackaroo.
Rick Mears this morning, 222 miles an hour. You've been a very interested observer out here thus far. Do you think you're going to be able to repeat that as far back as you're starting? You're 61st on the qualifying order.
Well, I don't know. It's going to be tough. You know, the Chevrolet's running well, and, you know, that's always a big help. But it's definitely gotten a lot warmer than it was this morning when we ran. So I think it's going to be difficult to repeat that by far.
Rick, what accounts for the big differences in speed between, let's say, what we saw all week and what we're beginning to see here this afternoon?
Well, really, the speeds of the cars themselves account for it. The cars are running so fast nowadays. You're leaning on them so hard that, you know, a little variation in condition makes a big variation in lap time. And if a car is off, it goes off in a big way. So, you know, it really makes a lot of difference with condition now.
When Al Unser Sr. was finished with his run and done with the photographs and the interviews, you were the first one to huddle with him over on the pit wall side. What were you asking him?
Well, I just kind of wanted to get an idea which way the track was going, and yeah, and it was getting slipperier. So we just got to deal with Lady Luck and the draw we got and see what happens.
Maybe one of the advantages of having a 3-car Penske team is you can check with your teammates before he has to go out. Paul?
Well, a little intelligence for Rick Mears. He is still to qualify along with Sullivan, Ray Hall, Al Unser, Roberto Carrero, some of the great names of the sport yet to qualify this afternoon. We'll be back. On the track now with a qualification attempt at Indianapolis, the number 91 car driven by Scott Brayton, who in 1985 held the 1-lap record here. He completed his first lap at 213.716 miles an hour. He is on lap number 2 right now. Of course, there's other motorsports going on in the world at this time. The Formula One are racing in the streets of the picturesque city of Monte Carlo, the Grand Prix of Monaco. And we will have a satellite report on the qualifying there a little later in the day, and a great deal coming up this afternoon on Wide World of Sports. But remember, if it happens here at Indianapolis throughout the afternoon, we will have a report for you. Bobby Unser's Scotty Brayton has completed lap number 2 at 212.359 miles an hour. He's averaging 213 miles an hour, and at the moment, that is good enough to put him on the outside of the front row.
That's right, Paul. And also, Scotty is driving one of the much publicized Buick V6s based on the stock block series. In other words, a pushrod engine. And those engines are given 10 more inches of manifold pressure than the other cars, and they have a very high straightaway speed. For example, Scotty's been running 224 miles an hour as compared to some of the Cosworths at 219 at the end of the back straightaway.
This car is owned by Ron Himmelgarn. The crew chief, though, is Darrell Soppy, who has quite a few IndyCar wins to his credit, is certainly capable of getting this car not only in a great qualifying position, but in a position to run well in the race. He has averaged 212.9 miles an hour, 224 miles an hour as he heads into turn 3, and his third lap was at 212.680 miles an hour. Very consistent speed going in the back.
Well, that shows that he's got it wide open in his invariant, so that means that Scotty's got it nailed down. Now, he's run faster in practice, like many of the cars here have here today. But, by the same token, it's a good average so far, and I think he'll be well in the field.
And the fourth lap complete at 211.750 miles an hour for Scotty Brayton. The 4-lap average, 212.6 miles an hour, and that is good enough to put him on the outside of the front row. So Scotty Brayton, for the moment, sits on the front row at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, earlier, Derek Daly went out and qualified for the 500. Let's take a look at the last 2 laps of Derek Daly's run. This is Derek Daly, car number 10. Beginning lap number 3 right now. Dwayne Sweetie, the starter. He's already completed at this point a lap at 211.9 and a lap at 212.7 miles an hour.
Derek Daly has been fairly fast all day. That's a car that had many problems last year with Dennis Firestone, that team. But it's all looks like it's straightened out good now, and Daly's been looking good this whole week.
Derek Daly, his practice times, only the top for the month has been at 211 miles an hour, so they've done something with that car. It's working very well. Kim Green is the crew chief, and they are now running the car faster than we have any record of their practice throughout the month.
Well, I've watched the car run fairly fast at different times. Sometimes they don't get all the practice time, but Derek has always been a fairly good Indianapolis driver. He just needs a good car sometimes.
So Derek Daly completes his qualification run, lap number 3 at 213.103 miles an hour.
He's moving now, Paul, no question.
On the backstretch, 5/8 of a mile long, 50 feet wide. Hard concrete wall to the outside.
218 miles an hour, that lap down the back straightaway, Paul.
Derek Daly now off of the 4th turn. And this was his run toward the checkered flag, signifying the end of his 4-lap run. The 4th lap at 211.342 miles an hour, and his average good enough to put him at the time on the outside of the front row, but he's since been pushed away. Now let's go down to the pit area.
Well, Derek did have a stint on the front row. You've been bumped to the 2nd row, but I'm sure you're pretty happy with that run.
I'm very happy because the changing conditions that were so hard to predict what was going to happen. I expected a 2nd lap to be faster. My 3rd lap was in fact my best. But I'm just thankful that Rayner made me go every day between 12 and 3 and not on the happy hour, which I think is a little bit of artificial speed.
What kind of speeds do you think we'll see this afternoon?
If Rick, who drew a late number, if he can run after 5:30, I'm sure you're going to see him edge back up into the 218s, maybe plus again.
Could be interesting. Derek Daly right now on the 2nd row. Paul?
So we're live now as we watch Pancho Carter. He was the pole sitter here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 1985, certainly looking for his opportunity to perhaps sit on the pole again. The pole, why is it so important You're on the front row, the inside. The drivers feel it's the key position, but we ask them, why is it?
It's a big thing. You kind of try to tell yourself that it's not. You just want to get in the show, but when it comes back right down to it, you want that pole very, very bad.
Well, I'd never really thought about it that much until I, got to sit on the pole in '85, and then you realize the importance it is, not so much to the driver himself, because it's always good to let everybody know that you're the quickest guy for that particular day, but it's really an incentive to do it to get your sponsor's name in front of the public for 2 full weeks.
And I think the pole is good for one thing. It's good for your sponsors. It's good for the crew, for the morale and all that. But I think it has absolutely no bearing on the race whatsoever.
Well, I think it's a good starting position, but I've never won the race starting on the pole. And I've sat on the pole, I think, as much or more than anybody here. But I can't say it's been lucky for me.
Well, it's the most important race in the world. And, to be here is already very important. But then to sit on the pole and to start from the front row in front of so many people is just something unbelievable.
It shows that you have the fastest car. It shows you have an advantage. It shows that that your team's together, and you are too.
You prepare the car only to run the fastest, not to run in a race. So it's that important, and then it's beautiful to start the race with clean air in front of you.
You get to walk around stepping a little higher, I guess, for 2 weeks before the race starts. And everything can change on race day. It can be totally different. But it's very important, as far as any of the other races go. This one is the important one to be on the pole.
So the pole position worth over $75,000 to the man who may win it this afternoon. Someone definitely will be sitting on that position when this day is done in Indianapolis. So far, 12 drivers in the 71 race history of Indianapolis have won from the pole.
Well, it's obvious. This is a place where we have a contest. The contest is speed, so sitting on the pole is always important. We have a man on the track right now that knows how to sit on the pole, that's exceptionally good in the Indianapolis type races. If there's in Indianapolis for all the fast races, that's Pancho Carter.
Pancho Carter, the machine is an 88 March. It is powered by a Buick V6. He is trying to make his way into his 15th Indianapolis 500 on the backstretch on the first lap of his qualification run. He lives not far from the speedway here in Brownsburg, Indiana. Remember, little wobble as he came off of that turn.
Oh, Bobby. He did. You remember now, it's been rumored that these Buick engines, the V6s, the stock block types, pull in excess of 800 horsepower. Now, that's a lot of horsepower here.
So Pancho Carter roaring down the main straightaway now. He has completed his first lap of his 4-lap qualification attempt at 207.833 miles an hour. I'm sure the crew isn't going to be happy with that. They practiced yesterday above 212 miles an hour.
The Buicks, for some reason or another, have been up and down. We've watched them all week, and for some reason or another, they've gone really fast, like up to 215. The next day, they seem to be down around 205. So we're not exactly sure what their problem is.
Pancho Carter. The car number is 28. Works his way around the track. The second V6 machine to attempt to make it into the Indianapolis field. The green flag continues to fly as he flashes across the start-finish line and dives into that first turn. Now, from a driver's point of view, and you'll certainly see this on race day when the onboard cameras are operating here, when they come off of the fourth turn, Bobby, you're really aiming for a spot 5/8 of a mile away that's only a couple of feet wide and very hard to see.
Yes, it is very hard to see. And you notice they all get really close to the walls, especially now coming off of turn 4 and turn 2. That's the entrance on the long straightaways. And what you do is you want the car to be free as it comes off the turns. If the guy were to run a little bit lower there, he would be doing what we call binding the car, cutting off a little bit of speed. So what you can gain right there, you can definitely expect at the other end to be a little bit faster.
And the yellow flag indicates that they have decided it is not fast enough. 2 laps at 207.8 miles an hour. The crew says, nope, we can do it better than that. So they're going to wave that car off.
Well, that's pretty much in line with what we've been guessing. Not quite fast enough.
So Pancho Carter waves off of his qualification attempt. He will have 2 more attempts this afternoon at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway or any time during time trials. Thus far, here is row number 1. Al Unser still holds on to that pole position. Michael Andretti on the inside, Scott Brayton to the outside. The second row,
has Derek Daly on the inside, Michael Andretti alongside, and then Kevin Kogan on the outside. The third row now consists of Tom Sneva and Scott Atchison. The next position to be filled will be the outside of the third row. Will it be this man, Randy Lewis, who is next in line, ready to attempt a qualification at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? And some very, very big names coming up a little later in the afternoon. It's the first day of time trials, the run for the pole in Indianapolis. Randy Lewis is ready. We'll be back. We're back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the first day of time trials, and you're watching Randy Lewis. He is on the first lap of his 4-lap qualification run.
Kind of a new driver from Northern California. Randy's been kind of trying to get into these Indy cars, Paul, and been having a little bit of problem and sometimes quality fairly good. So we'll see how he does here today.
A sophomore here at the Indianapolis 500. He finished 32nd last year out on the 8th lap with a gearbox problem. But to his advantage, he is crew chief by one of the best in the business, A.J. Watson, who stretches all the way back to the early 50s and has had a whole string of winners here.
When they used to all be just about Watson cars in the race. A.J. used to build practically the entire field when he was younger.
There are many here in the stands today who will still tell you that they think the Watson Roadster out of 1959, 60, 61 is the most beautiful race car ever built. Well, it's not a Watson Roadster now. It is a 1988 Lola powered by a Cosworth. The crew chief is Watson. The driver is Randy Lewis in his first lap at 210.197 miles an hour.
And that's a very respectable time, and I feel that that'll stay in the program if he can just keep that up, Paul.
He's on the main straightaway now, but as he was at the top speed position on the back straightaway, he was running 213 miles an hour, Bobby.
That isn't enough, but his speeds are very good. Maybe he's getting off the fourth turn better, because it looks like he's getting down the front straightaway real fast.
That gives you an idea of how very little there is a change in speed, because if he's averaging 210 and doing 213 at the fastest point, he's probably sliding to not less than 208, 213 again.
Except remember that we have 4 distinct different turns here, then they all have different personalities. So maybe he's getting off, he obviously is getting off a number 4 turn better than he's getting off a number 2, because the straightaway speed, the back straightaway, will reflect how fast he gets off a number 2 turn.
210.2 miles an hour for the second lap. The average for the 2 laps at 210.2 miles an hour. And that is a respectable qualification run. It would put him at the moment in the center of the second row, and in fact would allow him to qualify faster than Michael Andretti, which would be a surprise.
Well, his third lap's only dropped down to 209.4, 209 miles an hour. Exceptionally good. I know A.J. Watson has got to be extremely happy, because many of the years lately he's had a lot of problems with his cars.
But that drops the average now to 209.953 miles an hour, which, if he would continue that pace, will put him on the outside of the second row.
Well, we watch him come off the turn right there, and he just about touched the wall, Paul.
He's been very consistent, though, in speed. 213 down the backstretch again, as he is on the main straightaway. They show him 209 miles an hour for that lap, as Randy Lewis, on his qualification run at the Indianapolis 500, has completed his 4th lap now at 209.239 miles an hour. His average, 209.7 miles an hour, and that is good enough for the moment for the outside of the front row.
I think it's going to be good enough to stay in the race.
Well, Randy Lewis and A.J. Watson have to be pleased with that situation. A 209-mile-an-hour qualification run. But coming up, some of the very important drivers, here is one of them. Remember the story of this man last year. Roberto Guerrero is ready for his qualification run as he tries to win his first Indianapolis 500-mile race. So Roberto Guerrero is ready to run at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll be back with more coverage of the Indy 500 after this commercial and a word from our local stations. We're back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The crowd certainly enjoying the Hoosier sunshine here today and out on the track. The number 2 car. It is a Lola powered by a Cosworth. It belongs to Roberto Guerrero, as he is warming up now, ready to run his qualification attempt. Now, the auto racing action will continue tomorrow here on ABC Sports. Formula One drivers take on the course of 1,000 turns at the Grand Prix of Monaco. It's same-day satellite coverage from the beautiful Principality of Monaco. It all begins at 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Central and Pacific, tomorrow
on ABC Sports. And, of course, a little later today during Wide World of Sports, we'll have an update on the qualifications for that particular race. Now, Roberto Guerrero, as he is ready for a qualification run at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
That beautiful red car. Very fast qualifier normally. Roberto's had a few problems this month. He hasn't been quite up to his normal thing, but again, he's one of the guys in the Cosworth engine car, Paul. It seems to be lacking just a little bit in horsepower.
He's on his first lap of his run. A moment ago, you saw his 1986 record. Roberto Guerrero, you will remember, 1 year ago, had the lead of the 500 in the closing laps, and then on a pit stop, his engine faltered. And as he and the crew struggled to get the engine restarted and get going, Al Unser went by to pick up the lead and eventually the win of the race.
And he's also the driver that got hurt right there on the racetrack where we just saw his car go by testing the Goodyear radial tire. Something broke on the car, he spun and hit the wall. There's his Katie, just had a brand new baby. Katie's really excited, loves racing.
April 21st, Michael Evan Guerrero was born to Katie, and he, by the way, is at the track and here to watch his father qualify, the first time that he will ever see his father run in a race car. So Roberto Guerrero, 219 miles an hour, has been his entry into the third turn, the fastest section of the race course. His first lap, as Katie looks on, ran at 211.9, and his second lap dropped down considerably to 209.054 miles an hour.
Now you can see the car wiggle. Just as it came out of that last turn, Paul, it wiggled a little bit. That means he's not getting quite the adhesion he'd like to be getting.
The speed is falling off for Roberto Guerrero. 211.9 the first lap. His backstretch speed, 219 miles an hour. It fell off on his second lap average to 209. So will the crew accept that? Vince Granatelli is the car owner. Larry Curry is the chief mechanic. As Roberto Guerrero back on the main stretch, this will really be the critical time and speed coming up now. He's getting around this track just a tick over 43 seconds. There's Vince Granatelli with his back to you, as he is certainly thinking about that lap again at 209 miles an hour, 209.020. So the lap average for 3 laps is 209.989. Bobby, would you take it?
Now remember, Paul, right here is the bad decision. Look at Vince. He's doing some talking, some heavy thinking. He's wondering. That's at the bad time. For a guy like Guerrero, he really needs to be about 212 in order to know that he's in the show really good. Vince is doing some hard thinking right now.
Vince's dad, of course, Andy Granatelli, a winner here in '69 with Mario Andretti. As here comes Roberto Guerrero. As he flies toward the line, the checkered flag flies. They do take the run. Roberto Guerrero has completed his qualification attempt. Let's go down to the pit area. Brian Hammonds is with his wife, Katie.
Katie, it's been a long road back since that terrible accident last fall. What were your thoughts during that run?
Well, nervous as usual. That's the way I usually am here, but I feel bad for Roberto a little bit. I know he'll be disappointed with that time. We ran so well this morning, so I'll be interested to see what he has to say about the track and the car and such.
Are you relieved that run is over?
Yeah, I'm glad it's over anyway.
Katie Guerrero, a little bit disappointed in the speed, but she's glad it's over with, Paul.
The final lap for Roberto Guerrero at 208.57 miles an hour, bringing the 4-lap average to 209.6 miles an hour, and putting Roberto Guerrero onto the inside of the third row. Let's go down to Jack Arute now. He's with Vince Granatelli.
And Vince, the obvious question is, are you disappointed?
Well, sure we're disappointed. We ran 2:16.5 this morning, and everything looked perfect. The track has obviously not been good for Mario Roberto today.
Well, as Roberto goes by us here, what I've got to ask you is, why did you keep it then? You know, you still got plenty of time. You could have waved it off, tinkered with the car, and possibly come out when it was cooler during the day.
Well, we don't have any guarantees what's going to happen in the future, and there's not many people running faster than we are right now. So we have to stay with what we have. We know if we qualify today that we're going to make the show, and we're going to have a good.
And notice, though, you've got a T car, a backup car still in line. Something in the back of your head there, maybe?
It's a possibility, but that's not in our plans right now.
We talk about a T car. It's a backup car to Roberto Guerrero's car. A lot of the front runners have them. They put them in line. In fact, Bobby Rahal is going to qualify his backup car after he encountered the problems with his primary car earlier today, Paul.
All right, Jack Arute. So Vince Granatelli disappointed, but nonetheless, they are in the field so far. Here are your qualifiers. Remember, this is all tentative. Anyone who runs faster can instantly jump into the pole position currently occupied by Al Unser. Mario Andretti sits in the center of the front row, and then Scotty Brayton on the outside. The second row, Derek Daly, Michael Andretti, and Randy Lewis. The third row is now Roberto Guerrero, Kevin Kogan, and Tom Sneva. The average speed of the entire field right now is 210.7 miles an hour. Some of the crowd watches the racing, the other takes a nap under this beautiful Hoosier sky. Bright blue overhead. You can see the average speed, the cars that have qualified on the pylon, and we are continuing to cover live the time trials at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm Paul Page with Bobby Unser, Jack Arute, and Brian Hammonds. We'll continue to cover the time trials live throughout the entire day, and should something happen here, you'll certainly get an update at any time. Well, this is the third meeting of the IndyCar teams. 2 races have already been run this season. The first was April 10th at Phoenix, Arizona, on the 1-mile oval, a track that requires a similar setup to Indianapolis. Rick Mears had the pole and battled with Roberto Guerrero going to the first turn. But then he took and held the lead, his new Penske quickly outdistancing the competition. But while threading his way early through backmarker traffic, Rick collided with Randy Lewis. He kept the car off the wall and hoped to get back into the race. But to the great disappointment of his team and owner, Roger Penske, the car was out. Arie Luyendyk then had the lead, but as he stopped for a routine refueling, a loose vent allowed fuel vapor to ignite, setting the car on fire. Immediately, firemen and crew fell on the car, trying to put the fire out. Luyendyk stayed in the cockpit, hoping to get the car restarted. But finally, the heat forced Luyendyk from the car. No serious injuries took place, and Arie did rejoin the race, but he was out of the fight. The white Lola of Mario Andretti now picked up first spot. In the closing laps, he stretched out his lead and won going away. A week later, on the streets of Long Beach, Mario Andretti had the pole, but the front row barely mattered as Al Unser Jr. punched his way from the second row up to the lead. He made his move at the conclusion of the first lap, going inside Mario Andretti. Little Al's race was smooth until his first routine pit stop. As they refueled the car and changed tires, suddenly the pit stop ran long. Something was wrong at the left rear of the machine. Danny Sullivan roared past to pick up the lead as the crew struggled with a left rear tire that would not mount properly. A frustrated Gallus team worked hard on the tire and then finally sent Little Al back into the action. Race leader Danny Sullivan now had a clear run, but Little Al ran him down. Then, as they approached the third turn, Little Al, without hesitation, passed Danny and then drove away. That troublesome wheel and tire would not be a factor. It was a smooth run to the finish, and Al Unser Jr. won at Long Beach, California. It was Bobby Rahal who crossed the line in second place. So the stage now set for the Indianapolis 500, the first day of time trials. Car number 16 belongs to Tony Bettenhausen. It's a 1987 Lola. It's powered by a Cosworth as he begins to move up to speed now on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Remember, the first 2 races of the season sanctioned by CART, and now we are here under the control of the United States Auto Club, the longtime sanctioning body of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Well, down in the pits, Roberto Guerrero has completed his run and now stands with Brian Hammonds.
Roberto Guerrero ran 2:16 in practice this morning, only 2:09 in qualifying. What happened?
Well, it was the track, I think, got too slippery, or it was for my car anyway, so it's a little disappointing, but we'll just have to concentrate on the race now.
Did you want to keep that speed, or did you want Vince to wave you off?
Well, I didn't actually know what I was doing, so I didn't know. I mean, I knew they weren't very good for the RPMs that I was seeing, but, you know, it's too risky waving it as well, so I think we're in the race, and we'll just have to do our best then.
Are you disappointed?
Very much so, yeah. But, you know, more disappointed for the whole team. You know, they've worked very hard, so we'll have to make it up to them on the race.
All right, Roberto Guerrero, very disappointed. Now let's go down the pits and Jack Arute with Danny Sullivan.
Well, Brian, a car goes into the box, as they say, when it's ready to attempt qualifications. It goes through technical inspection, and that's what's happening to Danny Sullivan's car right behind us. Danny, you're in the box. You're next up. What have you learned so far from what you've seen out here?
Well, just basically that the track's slippery, and the balance has gone a little bit more toward understeer, and I think that's what's happened to a lot of guys. If they had a little bit of understeer, it got a lot worse. So hopefully our setup from this morning, which was a little loose, might bring me to neutral. Maybe we'll have it quickly.
So you really didn't make any changes on the car, but you think maybe the track, as they say, came to you a little bit more than you had anticipated?
Well, let's hope so. We made one little minor change, but we had done that right at the end of the practice, so it was very, very small, and we had done it earlier, and we knew what the change was.
The rumbles here on pit road are already beginning to say Penske, Penske, Penske for the front row. How do you see it?
I'd love to see it that way, but all I'm worried about right now is just Danny Sullivan getting the Miller car in the show and, you know, having a good run and a good safety.
Paul, back to you.
Well, Danny Sullivan will be coming up very shortly, as will Bobby Rahal. Tony Bettenhausen works on the fourth and final lap of his qualification run. He is averaging 207.4 miles an hour. Bobby, he's been getting into the top speed of the track at about 216 miles an hour.
Now, he's gained some speed, Paul. Tony's been around here quite a bit. He has a lot of experience. He's still in that questionable area.
And they
there's
wave
the
him
yellow
off.
flag. Yep, that was the questionable area. I was just going to say that they just didn't feel it was fast enough, and I think I have to agree with them.
207 mile an hour average. Only one car has accepted a speed below that average. That was Scott Atchison, who accepted 205.142 miles an hour. So Tony Bettenhausen, a rookie here at the Speedway in 1981 when he finished 7th, has not finished a 500-mile race since then, has waved off. They'll go back, work on the car, and decide what they can do to make that car run faster. So Tony Bettenhausen runs slow now. Al Unser still has the pole position. Mario, then Scott Brayton sit on the front row. Some other qualifiers coming up a little later in the day. Of course, Rick Mears, he may run a record. Sullivan in just a few minutes, and Rahal coming up next. The Indianapolis 500 time trials are being brought to you by the Heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. By Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. And by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, the taste adults have grown to love. They're great. Well, there's Danny Sullivan as he waits for his chance to qualify. Just one car before Danny Sullivan goes out. Roger Penske walks over, takes a look, and talks with Danny. We've seen some great driving from Danny Sullivan, but none better than in 1985. Mario Andretti was leading the race at 300 miles. Danny Sullivan was running second.
Danny Sullivan going down low. Can he make the move? Sullivan down low. Side by side, Sullivan has the lead. Danny Sullivan moving Kentucky. And just at that moment, losing control of the car, doing a magnificent job of not hitting the wall and continuing in the race. It's unbelievable.
The incredible move maybe ever in Indianapolis, and Mario didn't hit him, Jim. That's even more incredible. Andretti subtly moving to the side like a fighter, taking a punch but letting it slip by him. Sullivan at 200 miles an hour recovering from that spin. You have to go back to Jim Clark in 1964-5, Jim, to get a move like that on this racetrack.
I've never seen anything like it on the Indianapolis racetrack.
Incredible.
Unbelievable, but he's going to come in. That may have caused problems in the car.
That is absolutely unbelievable what we saw. Of course, he must now stop because he's flat-spotted those tires. He's coming down that very rough pit lane there, which keeps the speeds down.
Listen to the cheers for him.
Oh, it's incredible. This place has come alive, and of course, Andretti is in the pits too, both the leaders. But Sullivan is going to change all four tires because of that. Mario will go back out. You see, they're even changing that left front tire, which they never change.
Well, that'll cost him the lead, no question of it. But Danny Sullivan is back out on the race course. I have never seen a person take a spin like that and begin to slide towards the wall and still recover. Let's have another look at it. We're going to have slow motion here in just a moment.
I'll tell you exactly what I think happened, Jim, even before seeing it. Aerodynamic effects. Watch what happens. I'll bet you that as Sullivan gets in front of Mario, no, I'm dead wrong. It's running over that the white line. The very thing that he was doing that made him so fast, I think, tripped him in this one move. Yeah, Mario's too far back, I think, to have had a rear guard aerodynamic effect. But all right, now, Andretti faced with the moment of his driving life. He can't see where he's going. Fades slightly to the left by a miracle. Sullivan stays wide enough to the right, hits nothing, and we may have seen the most dramatic moment of racing, certainly that we're going to see this year. Incredible.
So Danny Sullivan now contemplates his qualification run to come just minutes away. But out on the racetrack itself, the 1986 Indianapolis 500 champion, Bobby Rahal. There he is, car number 4. He has begun his qualification run. We're live. He's on lap number 1 into the fastest part of the course at 220 miles an hour. This car is a Lola. It is the first car that we have seen today powered by the Judd racing engine.
Yes, now this Judd racing engine, Paul, so the people know, is the one that Rick Gallis had last year. He sold the whole operation out to Himmelgarn and to True Sports Racing, and that's what Bobby Rahal is running today.
The first lap at 210.2 miles an hour. Now, Bobby is out in his T car, his backup car. He came up earlier in his ordinary position in the line. The engine would not run. It would start, but it ran rough. They had to withdraw the car from the qualification lineup. They came back to this car. You see the T on there. That tells you that it's his backup car. Now, Bobby's been pretty quick with that car, though. He was in the T car today at 214.5 miles an hour. This time into turn 3 at 219, so a little slower as he heads down the backstretch, completing now his second lap, and the speed fell off drastically to 208.1 miles an hour, and he's averaging 209.1.
I don't think that's going to be acceptable to the True Sports team. Bobby Rahal's used to running faster than that, so whatever the track is doing to a lot of the drivers, it's getting Rahal also.
Now, Jim Prescott is the crew chief. He'll be consulting with the head of the True Sports operations, Steve Horn, and they'll decide whether or not those are acceptable times. At the moment, that would put Bobby Rahal in the third row here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the outside of the row. But Bobby, I wouldn't take it, would you? Not
no,
for that team.
They won't. I just don't believe they'll take it. We'll see what it is right here in this particular lap. He slows down again, then of course they won't take it. It's 207, so I'd say 99% chance they'll just put up the yellow flag when he comes back around the next time.
He's fallen off 3 miles an hour from his first lap. The third lap at 207.1 miles an hour. His average for the 3 laps at 208.4 miles an hour. This is the fourth and final lap, but now we'll have to watch as the crew stands down at the far end of the pit area. There they are. Jim Prescott has the yellow flag handy should they decide not to take it. But they're looking for a final time somewhere up in that fourth turn, and then they'll make the decision. And there it is, just as we suggested. Bobby Rahal waves off this qualification attempt, the crew deciding it just simply was not fast enough. So far at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we have 10 cars qualified. We'll be back. Well, it's a giant crowd here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as we're back live. Some enjoying their picnic lunch, others in the stands to watch Danny Sullivan as he is on his second warm-up lap, ready to qualify. Let's go to the pits now. Jackaroo.
Well, Bobby Rahal, this is twice now that you've gone out. Once you didn't make it off the tech area, and this time you took a couple of laps. Practice, practice, practice today.
Well, when we got out of line, you know, that shoots your chance at pole, which I didn't think we had much of a shot at anyway, frankly. So in that case, you might as well make sure it's right. And it felt good the first lap. It just started to start going away from me, and obviously the speed dropped. And you know, now we can afford to go back out again and try it again.
It hasn't been a very good month for Bobby Rahal. Certainly not one of the better ones.
Well, we run pretty strong, I think, a lot of times, but you know, we've been down on straight line speed, and I think that's hurt us a little bit. But you know, this morning we ran 214s, 215s, so I was pretty happy.
The new engine combination, the Judd combination, you say that you think that will help you, though, in the 500-mile contest. The fuel consumption is much better with this engine than the Chevrolets or the Cosworth.
Well, I think on any race it's tough on fuel, and I guess I'm really, in many respects, there are more road circuits where it's tougher than oval because of all the yellows. But so far, you know, I
It's already made a difference in Long Beach, and I don't see why it won't make a difference, in a few other races this year.
Ray Hall's back at the end of the line one more time, Paul Page.
And out on the track, Danny Sullivan is flying. His first lap completed now at 217.3 miles an hour. That is good enough to move Danny Sullivan to the pole, if only he can keep it up.
And it's what we were talking about earlier, Paul. Penske chassis. Does Penske have better chassis this year? This would make you think that that's the way it is.
Is it possible we will see an all-Penske stable front row here at the Speedway, because not only Danny Sullivan on the track now, but Rick Mears is yet to come up, and we already know he is very fast. The second lap, even faster than the first, 217.7 miles an hour. He is averaging above the one-lap record now at 217.7. Danny Sullivan has just set a new one-lap record at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The old record held by his teammate Rick Mears at 217.5. So Danny Sullivan into the record books, working lap number 3, but look at that car wiggle.
Boy, that almost got loose right there. Now, that was the difference between just another half a turn on the rear wheel. Would have probably spun him and hit the wall right there. Also, he's using all the car has. The car looks like it's sticking to the ground other than that one little wiggle.
A white flag, one more lap to go. Will Danny Sullivan go into the record book? Well, that little wiggle cost substantially at 215 miles an hour, 215.1. He is averaging 216.7 to this point. That does not break Rick Mears' 4-lap record, but perhaps this last lap will tell.
Remember what we said. When they qualify, they lay the wings down. They set everything to go as fast as they can. Obviously, they make the cars run as loose as they can and still go fast. Danny is on the brink of it.
Danny Sullivan, fast hands, fast eyes, and running very fast at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. As he comes toward the checkered flag, will this put Danny Sullivan on the pole? He completes his 4-lap run. Some spectacular speeds in his second lap, broke the track record. Now, the final lap at 214.679 miles an hour. The 4-lap average, 216.214 miles an hour. Danny Sullivan, for the moment, moves on to the pole position, and that carries with it the possibility that Roger Penske will have his entire team across the front row.
Well, it's more possible now than it ever was. That's a pole in the middle, and all we have is Rick Mears on the outside yet to go, or for the pole.
All right, let's go down to the pits. Jack Arute is with team manager Derek Walker.
And they say he is the mastermind of the juggernaut that seems to be taking the front row here. Derek, you spoke to Rick Mears, not Rick Mears, but actually Danny Sullivan as he crossed the line. What did you tell him?
I just told him the time and just told him to hang in there.
Well, here he goes right by us now.
2 average.
You were talking to him right now, gave him the 216.2 average. What is accounting for this phenomenal run? Is it the chassis, Derek?
Well, it's a accumulation of things. Obviously, we've got Nigel Bennett, our designer, all the people in England, the team, everything is all just coming together. But it all starts with the pencil. It's the designer, really. It starts it all going.
Well, here's a team that has battled back from adversity, not once, not twice, but many times, Paul.
Danny Sullivan, the new track record holder for a single lap at 217.7. We'll be back with more coverage of the Indianapolis 500 time trials after this commercial and a word from our local station. Speedway, the car on the track is number 8. It belongs to Teo Fabi. It is the eyes of Europe watching this car. The car is the Porsche effort. The chassis is a March, but the engine is Porsche. And Teo Fabi has completed 2 laps. One at 207.7 miles an hour, the second at 208.2 miles an hour. He's averaging 207.9 miles an hour. I'm Paul Page with Bobby Unser, Jack Arute, and Brian Hammonds. We've had a battle for the pole here today. The first to hold the pole was Mario Andretti, and then it was taken away by Al Unser. And just moments ago, you saw it here live as Danny Sullivan broke the 1-lap record at Indianapolis at 217.7 miles an hour and averaged 216.2 miles an hour. Currently, Danny Sullivan sits on the pole, but this is the Porsche crew of Teo Fabi, Al Holbert, managing that team as it works its way around the track.
Well, we have to guess. He's running a little bit too slow, I think, to make the field at a 207, 208. I don't think they can gamble on that. They're probably having a little bit of problem with maybe the heat in the engine today. Their straightaway speeds, for example, are only 215 miles an hour. That's a little bit less than the Cosworth cars are running at, for example, the Cosworth's at 219. So they may just give Teo the yellow flag also.
Now we're reporting out these speeds to you. It is at just 1 point on the straightaway. We assume it will be pretty close to the top speed, but Bobby and I, neither one of us think it's exactly the top speed. It's, in fact, maybe 10, 15 miles an hour off. But it's always in the same place, so it's valid for comparison. Teo Fabi completes the run. The last lap at 205.667 miles an hour. The third lap at 207.4. He really was all over the chart on the speeds, averaging 207.244 miles an hour. So at 207 miles an hour, Teo Fabi is in the Indianapolis 500-mile race field. And one of his predictions the other day has not come true. I asked him, what would be the slowest speed in the field? And he said, us. Well, he's not the slowest in the field. At the moment, that is Scott Atchison at 205.1. So Teo Fabi moves into the center of the fourth row. Let's go down to the pits. Jack?
Well, Paul, when you look over my shoulder here, you see the front stretch, and bordering it on the outside is a retaining barrier and what they call a catch fence. And on the inside is another retaining barrier. Not a lot that you have to be concerned about today with only one car out on the racetrack, but back in 1973, those walls and those fences got a workout.
Jim Ranson takes the base car off the track. He should get the green right now. Doesn't look like a repeat of last year's start. No, it's a good one. And here they come. Bobby Unser going for the lead. Johnny Rutherford right alongside him. Rutherford down low, but Bobby, there's a terrible crash on the home stretch. There are several cars involved. We can't see the numbers, but it's been a bad crash on the start. It was in the middle of the field somewhere. Terrible thing. Explosion. This is what everyone has feared. This is why there's been such a terrible atmosphere of fear here all weekend long. It's a shame there's a driver waving. He might be on fire, that man, the way he was waving. You can't see an alcohol fire. Those explosions are not cars. Those are the bombs overhead that are normally set off during the start of the race. There is a report already that there may be spectators hurt, not confirmed. The wire fence right here on the straightaway was ripped apart. It was very fortunate that a car did not come into the crowd, because one of the standards holding up the wire screen has also been broken in half. Right here at the most crowded part of the grandstand, we almost had an automobile go into the crowd. And it appears definitely that there are spectators injured, but here's a replay of what happened here. He was back in the 6th or 7th row of this car. Conjecture that it might have been salt water, but watch. There's a car going, starting to the right. Right there, and look at this. An incredible explosion. Fuel spraying out over the spectators in the first few rows. That could mean real trouble. Another explosion, and like a pinwheel or a garden sprinkler, all the fuel is being sprayed out of the car. That could be a good thing for the driver if he has survived this crash. Car upside down, coming to a rest. Another view of this from a head-on camera. And again, you will see how the cables inside this screen are the only thing to stop this car from flying into the crowd. There, watch now. The screen itself is completely destroyed. The cables flinging him back out on the race course upside down, and again that fuel spraying on the crowd. That's a matter of great concern. And here, that pinwheel effect. The alcohol-based fuel spinning out of the car upside down. Another car, Lee Koonsman, I believe, number 16, barely missing the crash. It's Salt Walther, who is under the car. Terrible, terrible accident on the start at Indianapolis. Only 7 seconds after the start of the race.
Of course, since that time in 1973, the Speedway constantly works on safety, and it is one of the safest tracks in the world, without question, especially considering the incredible speeds that they run here. Out with a qualification attempt now, a rookie, looking for his first time in the 500, but a very familiar name. This is John Andretti. He is the nephew of Mario Andretti. His first lap came through at 207.8 miles an hour. We're live at Indianapolis as we watch a very exciting first day of time trials. The pole has swapped hands 3 different times now, and John Andretti, as a rookie, tries to make it into this field. There are different victories here today. For the veterans, it is getting into the pole position. For some of the rookies, it's simply getting into the Indianapolis 500. His second lap for John Andretti at 207.4 miles an hour. He's averaging 207.6. Let's go to the pits now, Brian.
Paul, Danny Sullivan just told me he just drove the 4 hardest laps he's ever driven here at Indianapolis. It paid off, pal. You're on the pole.
Well, I am for right now. Of course, I got a very fast teammate that back there, and Rick's awful good around here. And I think I've stood in this position before when he
bumped me off the pole. But for me, that was about the hardest laps I've ever driven here. Not that it was just the car was too loose, the track was too slippery, and that's why I backed off the last 2 laps. I was just sliding away too much out of turn 2 and out of turn 3 and 4, and I thought I don't want to give away what I had gotten on the first 2 laps.
You talk about your teammate. Do you expect Rick Mears to knock you off the pole, or are the conditions going away?
No, I think his car's still good enough, and Rick's still good enough to put a consistent run together, but stranger things have happened. I'm just hoping we're all up there. I hope he gets a good, clean run, and then if he's quicker, so be it. You know, it'd be kind of a change. He's been really quickest all month.
All right, Danny Sullivan right now on the pole. Paul?
Well, we're watching John Andretti, and you saw it because it looked like the engine went away as they were running on their 4th lap of qualification. So John Andretti's run for the moment is over 3 times this month. Before today, he blew engines. This looks like the 4th one of the month. Now let's go down to the pits. Rick Mears continues to watch this qualifying.
Well, and Rick Mears is going to come up pretty shortly for you. There's only about 3 cars in front of you, but the Penske team has got 2 cars in the front row, and now it's all up to you. And many people consider you the #1 driver on the team. 222 this morning. Feeling the pressure?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You always feel the pressure at this place, but you know, hopefully we're just going to go out there and try to get 3 smooth or 4 smooth laps in and just see where it puts us.
You've always said that you can feel the difference between 1/10 of a second or so inside the race car.
Oh, yes, you can. You know, once you get comfortable and acclimated to the car, you can tell if it's a good one or a bad one. I know this morning when I ran that 22, Roger came on the radio and says, all right, good, a 221, and said, bring it in. And I radioed back to him and said, you know, I thought that felt better than a 221. So pretty soon he comes back on and says, you're right, 222. So we were that close. And so when it gets to that limit, you can actually tell.
Well, he hopes that he can tell even more so today when he takes 10 miles around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Paul.
And if he can sit on the pole, he'll add it to his pole position from 82 and 86 and be a 3-time winner of the pole at Indianapolis. There's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame Museum. Some magnificent racing cars in there, many of the former 500 winners. As we continue live from time trials at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A number of key drivers still to qualify here. One coming up in just a moment is Rick Mears. We'll be back with more live from Indianapolis. We're back live at Indianapolis. We couldn't have asked for a better, safer day or more action than we're seeing. 21 cars have been presented, 20 tried to qualify, and 12 have made it into the 500 field. And look at that field average, 210.892 miles an hour. It has been a very, very safe month of May. We ask a series of drivers, why has it been so safe this May?
Oh, I think maybe the tires are a little bit better, a little better grip. Maybe people are using their heads a little bit more. Maybe the cars are a little better.
I think basically it's got to be someplace in the Goodyear tires. I don't think there was a problem last year in so much as the tire, but I think the combination of the tire and a certain chassis was a problem.
Well, I think so far one of the main reasons are the conditions have been so good. You know, even though we've had wind blowing, we've had rain, and we've had cool weather, we haven't had the real high temperatures, which makes the track very slippery. And we've had good conditions, crisp, what we call crisp conditions. The track has a lot of grip.
The engineers, you know, learned some things, both for the chassis and for the tire construction. So those things, I think, have led to better situations for the driver, more predictable situations for the drivers.
The teams understand the radio tires now. Last year, I don't think anybody understood them except the guys that tested with them, and they didn't have much of a problem. But I think it's just a matter of understanding the tires and understanding your car. And now they understand it all, and things have been easier this year towards that.
So the drivers feel that this has been a very safe month and will, in fact, hopefully continue to be so. The qualifiers thus far, Danny Sullivan now has the provisional pole as we are watching Phil Kruger roll out, ready to warm up for his qualification run. The second row, Brayton, Daly, Michael Andretti. The third row, Randy Lewis, Roberto Guerrero, Kevin Kogan. And in the fourth row now is Tom Sneva, Teo Fabi, and Scott Atkinson. Indianapolis. It's the time trials, the first day of qualifications. This is the run for the pole. But on Sunday, May 29th, ABC Sports will present the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. We'll be back. We're back live at the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm Paul Page with Bobby Unser, Jack Arute, and Brian Hammonds. The car number is 97. The driver is Phil Kruger, one of the nicest young men that you'll ever meet in motorsport. Not only is he a competent driver, he is a very skillful mechanic. He now tries to qualify a car that was built in 1986. It is a March. It's powered by a Cosworth. It is a team, Bobby Unser, that does not have the great financial support of some of the operations here.
They certainly don't, Paul, but it is an older car. But Phil, being a mechanic driver, is dedicated and a hard worker. I think that in a sentimental way, I hope he makes it.
Now, Phil Kruger has not had a lot of time on the track. In fact, he passed up almost the entire week. His first practice in this car came yesterday, and he took it up to a pretty respectable speed at 212.014 miles an hour. He's just completed his first lap in a qualification attempt at 207.3 miles an hour.
I think this car will also answer, Paul, about what has gained the big speeds for us this year. I think this car is an 86 car, going faster than it's ever gone before, and I'll tell you that the tires are the answer.
207.713 miles an hour was Phil Kruger's first lap. As he works his way now around the speedway, Phil Kruger was helping the Porsche team in testing their car and was a candidate for Rookie of the Year his first year at the Indianapolis 500. His best start here was 24th in 1986. As he flashes now down into the first turn, 9-degree, 12-minute banking, crosses that line, back out in the short chute. He's completed his second lap a full mile an hour faster. The second lap at 208.72 miles an hour. He's averaging 208.215 miles an hour.
Well, that's good speed. In fact, I think from what we've been seeing today, he better just take that speed if he can keep it going. I think the crew will be happy with it, Paul.
Well, if he takes that speed, it will put him in the middle of the fourth row, ahead of Tail Bobby and Scott Atchison. So Phil Kruger, the number 97 car. Dave McLaren's the chief mechanic on that. His best finish in Indianapolis was 31st a year ago.
217 miles an hour down the back straightaway. Not bad for a 2-year-old car.
Remember, we're taking back straightaway speeds all in the same place so that we have comparison. It's not necessarily the fastest speed on the back stretch. 208.6 miles an hour the third lap. He's averaging 208.3.
Just so that people understand what you just said about the straightaway speeds too, Paul, all during the week, 230, 227, all the radar guns down the front straightaway. So it is only just a measuring stick down the back straightaway right now on the speed.
A point of reference, but a very good one. You watch the back end top just a little on Phil Kruger's machine. He has been very consistent on his straightaway speeds. And they're looking at the fourth lap. The team says go on and take the flag as Phil Kruger completes his fourth and final lap. 10 miles now complete at Indianapolis. The final lap at 207.7 miles an hour. He averaged 208.212 miles an hour. And so that Phil Kruger moves into a position ahead of Tail Bobby in the center of the fourth row.
Puts it well in the field, Paul. I think he should be really proud of that.
So now we are ready to find out what the possible fastest speed of the day will be. That number 5 car belongs to Rick Mears. That's his wife, Chris Bowen, just off to the right. His owner, Roger Penske. It is going through its final inspection prior to a qualification. The chief mechanic, Peter Parrott, steps across the front, his arms crossed, watching, I'm sure wondering, will this car sit on the pole? Well, we'll find out in a very few minutes. We'll be back. This ABC Sports exclusive, the Indianapolis 500 time trials, have been brought to you by Miller High Life. Brewed to be smooth, never bitter. Takes time to make, time to enjoy. By AC Delco, automotive parts that don't just fit, they match. By Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. And by Quaker State Motor Oil, the big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. Magnificent crowd here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to enjoy the run for the pole. The first of 4 days of time trials. We've seen 22 cars presented at the line. 21 have attempted to qualify, and so far we have 13 qualifying positions field. That means that we're now into the 5th row. Currently, the pole sitter is Danny Sullivan. Alongside him is Al Unser. Now, the question is, will the car we're watching, which belongs to Rick Mears, will it move into the outside of this front row, displacing Mario Andretti to the 2nd row? There is the front row, Sullivan, Unser, Andretti. The 2nd row, Scott Brayton, Derek Daly, Michael Andretti. The 3rd row, Randy Lewis, Roberto Guerrero, Kevin Kogan. And the 4th row now consists of Tom Sneva, Phil Kruger, Teo Fabi, and Scott Atchison is at the moment the lone occupant in the 5th row with the slowest speed in the field at 205 miles an hour. Everybody's enjoying this race except for this lad who's taking a nap at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Some beautiful ladies. They're enjoying the race day as well here in time trials at Indianapolis. Look at that magnificent crowd that we're seeing here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Coming up next, of course, it will be the GTE Byron Nelson Golf Classic coming up from Irving, Texas in just a few minutes. But this is the moment we're watching right now. Rick Mears. Look how happy he looks. He seems very pleased with himself, very confident, which is what he has been most of the month of May.
Well, he certainly has, Paul, and if everything goes well, and it should go well, Rick should easily be able to take the pole, and it's just a question about how fast will it be in everybody's mind.
All right, what is Roger Penske, the team owner, thinking? Let's go to the pits and find out.
Roger, you've talked to Danny Sullivan, who just put his car in the pole. Have the conditions changed a lot? Can Rick do it?
Well, I think the track obviously is warmer, but the car seemed to be consistent. He said he was a little bit loose off a 2, but we had made a change in the size of the right side tire before we went out a little more stagger. But it was a good, clean run, and we were going to pull out with Rick, but I think that we better not take a chance. We ran very quick yesterday with Rick's car at about 3 o'clock. It was 81 degrees, and I think there's very little wind right now. So the best thing for us to do is just have a good, clean run.
Have you changed anything on the car after talking to Danny?
Well, I think Rick made that change after this morning, knowing it was going to get warmer. So we did little things. You don't make a big change. If you do, you get yourself in trouble.
All right, Roger Penske trying to put another car in the front row here at Indianapolis. Paul?
Well, Brian Hammonds, you couldn't ask for better drama. Danny Sullivan, Al Unser, Michael and Mario Andretti have qualified. Kevin Kogan is in this field. Tom Sneva, Teo Fabi with that Porsche-powered machine. But everyone waits for this man. Certainly the man of the moment, Rick Mears. He has been the fastest throughout the practice. He has waited until the middle of the afternoon. 222.8 miles an hour is his fastest practice speed, and that turned here this morning. Well, we're obviously just a few moments away as Rick Mears puts on his earphones and gets ready to climb into the car. It is probably now 2 minutes until Rick Mears will roll away in that machine and go for his qualification run. Of course, at this point, it's all up to Rick. He can take his time. He's very, very quick, and he knows it.
He's one of the best qualifiers that we have today. He and Mario are probably 2 of the best. But don't ever let him fool you. He's not really as relaxed as it looks like on camera.
Rick Mears pulls down the fire protection around the edge of his helmet. He's already put the earphones for his two-way radio, so he will be able to talk to Roger Penske and the other members of the crew as he works his way around the track. But there's very little they can tell him other than go fast or go faster.
They'll clock him in turn 4, same place they clock the others, and they'll probably give it to him in just big figures. And hopefully for Rick, it'll be large numbers. And for us, I know we're all waiting anxiously to see, is he really going to get that 220 or above, Paul?
Peter Parrott and the crew have tuned this Penske creation to perfection as they strap him in now. Rick Russell leaning over Rick Mears. There's a ceremony about this. It is always the same man that snaps the belt. Each of the crew members here at Indianapolis have a little tradition. They may glance at the driver, a thumbs up, a wave, but it's very important to each of them.
They don't try to put a lot of pressure on the driver. They try to make it seem like it's just another day in practice, and it's really important. There's so much pressure on the qualifications day. I guess no matter how long people talk about it, it will never be able to be explained on why it's so important to go fast qualifications day or sit on the pole.
Well, one reason is that the most races, 12, have been won from the pole position. That certainly is important. Rick Mears sits calmly, quietly in the car. Now, Rick Mears can calm himself so much that he is capable of falling asleep on the grid. He has actually done that. Of course, the Penske team, hopefully about to enjoy a good moment, have had bad moments here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's go back to 1982 when Rick Mears made a stop in one race.
Wait, we got a fire there. You can't see it, but it's an outlaw fire. Look at people fleeing in every direction. It's Rick Mears trying to get out of his car. He just came into the pits. This could be very bad. You can't see it, but it's there. See him waving his hand. There's Mears. He's got the flame-proof driving suit on. There's a mechanic who's really on fire.
Rick Mears is on fire himself. He's on fire. He dropped the car, and he's
still not getting that man.
The mechanic's still on fire. You cannot see the flame. It's an alcohol fire.
Look at those tanks right there contain fuel, too. This is a very dangerous situation. They seem to be getting it under control now.
Father Mears there. His father there. The mechanic is obviously burned. He knows he's burned. My, Jim, this could have been a tragedy because there's all that fuel there. The equipment is here. The fire extinguishers are here to put it out. They're really playing a lot on it here.
Well, the other mechanic seems okay for the moment.
Well,
don't know about those burns, though, at this point.
Well, you know, nobody recognizes how heavy a burn is until sometimes too late. But Rick Mears was undoubtedly better equipped for it. His wife
There's
is
his
there.
wife, yeah.
Oh, she's worried, obviously. The biggest risk here, of course, is inhalation. That's his father there, looking over him there. Inhalation. And here's Tom Sneva still trying to get out the pits during all of that drama. Now we're back into the Rick Mears pit. The biggest risk there is inhalation of flame or heat or toxics where you can severely burn your lungs. Now, he was lucky. He had his helmet on, Jim. And, of course, that could have helped him. Look at all that stuff.
A terrible moment there, a terrible moment, and obviously he has at least been helped a great deal by that clothing.
That's all behind Rick Mears now. We are live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Rick Mears is strapped into the cockpit and is rolling now on the first lap. He has 2 laps in which to warm the car up. He's taking it very easily. Now, Rick Mears has won 2 500s, looking for his 3rd pole position. His wife, Chris Mears, is in the pits watching. Brian Hamilton.
Houston's safest laps out of everybody else. That's basically all I think about.
Can you make the pole?
I think so.
Chris Mears, a very interested bystander here in the pits.
Well, Chris Mears thinks so. I'm sure that about 150,000 people here at the track think so.
Oh, she knows he can. I mean, that girl really knows he can. He knows he can. It's just a question of whether everything's right.
This is Paul Page with Bobby Unser, Jack Arute, Brian Hammonds. We are live from Indianapolis. Golf will be coming up in just a few minutes, but first we will keep our eyes focused on this bright yellow machine. Moves so slowly down the backstretch, and if we take a look at the cars that have been presented at the line, 21 have attempted qualifications, 13 have qualified. This pole has been swapped 3 different times. First it was held by Mario Andretti, and then Al Unser, and then Danny Sullivan. As we take a look through this field once again, if Rick Mears can qualify on the front row, it will be an all Penske front row. And perhaps that predicts what we may see on race day. The second row, Braden Daly, Michael Andretti. The third row, Lewis, Roberto Guerrero, and Kevin Kogan. The fourth row is now Sneva, Bill Kruger, Theo Bobby, Scott Atchison in the 4th row. But will Rick Mears move on to the pole position? Will he break his 4-lap average of 216.8 miles an hour? Or perhaps he will break Danny Sullivan's brand new 1-lap record of 217.7 miles an hour. In just a few moments, we will know the answers to all of those questions and more.
Now remember, we heard a little bit earlier that Rick had possibly talked to Danny and to Al and maybe changed the stagger on the rear tires from Roger Penske, Paul. It's going to be interesting. Let's watch that and see if it changes the handling on his car.
The car rolled out as we watch the crew. Derek Walker is there with the green and yellow flag. Peter Parrott, the crew chief. Walker's the manager. Rick picks up the pace now, ready to start on his qualification run. There he is on the back stretch. This time around, he should see the green flag. Will he add to that already awesome record of Penske in the front row? In 77, it was Sneva and you, Bobby Unser, on the front row. 78, Sneva and Rick Mears. In 82, Rick Mears had the pole. Kevin Kogan was alongside. In 86, Rick Mears the pole again.
Danny Sullivan alongside. As Rick Mears comes toward the start-finish line, the green flag is waved. They click the watches as he flashes across that yard of brick, heads into the first turn. Will this be a record run? We're about to find out as Rick Mears is on a qualification run.
His line is good. It's a fast line. He's not getting too much of his tires on the white and yellow line. He's coming near the wall, coming out. Really good so far, Paul.
Rick Mears, you're looking at his time trial best. 216.828 miles an hour, the 4-lap record here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Many of those people here in the stands today feel that it is about to fall, as well as perhaps Danny Sullivan's one-lap record. By comparison, Rick Mears down the backstretch in our checking position at 227 miles an hour across the line. Roger Penske, Chris Mears, they look happy with what they've seen on their stopwatches. 220.453 miles an hour. Rick Mears has broken Danny Sullivan's record that was set just a little over 1 hour ago.
Fabulous, Paul, and yet his line looks like it's pretty conservative. He's not wiggling, he's not sliding. He's in the right place on the racetrack. Looks like he can do that all day, doesn't he?
In racing, fast is smooth, and Rick Mears looks very smooth. There's no question. He is very fast. We might be able from time to time to listen in to his team manager, Derek Walker, as he stands on the straightaway. Again, they're reporting the speed out good. Look at Roger Penske. He's proud of that one as he passes the watch around. 219.887 miles an hour. 877 miles an hour. 219.877. Rick Mears is averaging 220.165.
This is what the crowd has come to see, Paul. They're standing up all around the racetrack. They want to see that 220 mile an hour. They want to see new records, and that's exactly what Rick is doing.
Rick Mears on the third of 4 laps. Are we going to see an all Penske front row at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? His speed on the backstretch remains consistent at 227 miles an hour. His average is right now 220.165 as he comes down the main stretch again. Roger Penske looks up, watches his car enter into the first turn. 218. That was what you saw in Penske's face. The speed has come off just a bit, but still it is incredibly fast. 218.781 miles an hour. Rick Mears averages 219.7. He's on the final lap.
And he still looks smooth. I don't think there's any danger. He is slowing down a little bit. Remember, though, that's really fast. He could slow down a little bit without looking too bad.
Rick Mears is about to shatter his own 4-lap record if only he can hold on for this final lap. His straightaway speed has fallen off to 226 on the backstretch, but here he comes. Rick Mears takes that checkered flag. They accept the run. And Rick Mears, look at them, they're happy. They're celebrating already. Rick Mears has completed his qualifying run the last lap at 217.702 miles an hour. The 4-lap average, a new track record, 219.198 miles an hour.
Absolutely fabulous, Paul. This is exactly what everybody came to see. Roger Penske is happy. The crew is happy. I can look down there now and see him jumping every place.
So the front row now is Rick Mears on the pole. His teammate, Danny Sullivan, is alongside, and his teammate, Al Unser. 3 Penske cars, 3 members of the Penske team now occupy the front row at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as Rick Mears did what everyone expected, what he predicted the entire month, 219 miles an hour. So coming up next on ABC Sports, it's live 3rd round golf coverage of the GTE Byron Nelson Golf Classic. Then on ABC's Wide World of Sports, a world-class field at the International Invitational Diving Championships. Plus, Ali Sheba and Ben Twice in the Pimlico Special. And the live report will continue updating you from Indianapolis for the time trials and the run for the pole. This has been a presentation of AB. Well, there aren't enough superlatives to describe either the day or the action we've had at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the first day of time trials. And Bobby Unser, the track has been perfect.
It is. It's the best first day weather I've ever seen in my life here at Indianapolis. I'm sure maybe there's been some as good, but I've never seen them.
Well, there was much promised. Much of that on the very first car out. It belonged to Mario Andretti. He had been at faster than 221 miles an hour in practice. But during the qualifying, his 4-lap average dropped to 214.6 miles an hour.
You can obviously see, Paul, that Mario is very much in a push condition, meaning his car just won't turn. Now, what caused it, I don't really know, but he really had problems turning his car today.
Mario Andretti was bitterly disappointed over the slowness of his run. Now for an update on the Andretti story, let's go to Jack Arute.
Paul, Bobby Unser was absolutely right. Mario Andretti did have a problem with the car, and it was understeer, and it was created back in turn number 4 when he passed over an area where Tom Bigelow had crashed during a practice session an hour before he went out. Mario said that created a severe understeer problem on the car, and when I asked him why on the phone, why he accepted the laps, he said, in retrospect, I wish I hadn't. But that's all by the boards now. He is not on the pole, but he's in the race. Back up to you.
But Mario's time on the pole was only a few minutes because the defending 500 champion Al Unser Sr. took to the track. He averaged 215.27 miles an hour.
He certainly did, Paul. His run was picture perfect. He took advantage of the weather just like he should have, and obviously the Penske people have done their homework well.
But the fight for the pole was still active. As another member of the Penske team, Danny Sullivan, headed out to the track. Sullivan broke the one-lap record at 217.749 miles an hour and averaged 216.24 miles an hour for the 4-lap.
I'd have to say that Danny used his car about 110%. He did a good job. He almost got loose one time that we saw on TV, but he saved it and did well.
But the crowd began to anticipate the arrival of Rick Mears, and Brian Hammonds was there. Brian?
Speculation, Paul, had Rick Mears waiting until late in the afternoon before going out to qualify because the conditions are cooler. But after his teammate, Danny Sullivan, went out, ran 2:16, he came back, reported that the track really wasn't that bad. Roger Penske took that to heart, wheeled Rick out. The rest is history. He's now on the pole. Paul?
Rick Mears indeed took to the track and averaged 219.1 miles an hour, breaking the 1- and 4-lap record along the way.
You realize that if they change the rules like it's been talked about an awful lot, that record may stand a long time, Paul. It was more than fabulous.
When it was over, it was one very happy man, Rick Mears, as well as the entire Penske team. They now had the front row. But Rick was especially happy.
Rick Mears, the man on the pole at Indianapolis. When I talked to Danny Sullivan earlier, he said you were going to knock him off the pole, and doggone if you didn't.
Well, I tell you what, I thought, I didn't know if we'd have a shot at him or not. He did a heck of a job and had a good run. And, you know, under today's conditions, the way it was, I thought he was going to be very tough to beat.
What's it like to go 220 miles an hour?
Tell you, it was quick. We ran as hard here as we probably ever run, and it was, you know, a slippery condition. We really had to hang on to get it done. But, you know, the way the Pennzoil car was working, it was just, I couldn't ask for any better, really.
You should feel safe with that speed. Nobody can go faster than that, do you think?
Well, you know, you'd like to think not, but I'll keep my fingers crossed until 6 o'clock.
All right, Rick Mears, the man in the pole right now from Indianapolis.
So 5 rows, 15 cars are now qualified. The front row, Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, Al Unser. The second row, Mario Andretti, Scott Brayton, and Derek Daly. The third row, Michael Andretti, Randy Lewis, and Roberto Guerrero. The fourth row, Kevin Kogan, Tom Sneva, Phil Kruger. The fifth row, Teo Fabi, Rich Vogler, and Scott Atchison. The speed of the field to this point, 210.9 miles an hour. Now, this isn't the only racing going on. We'll have updates as qualifying continues here. And, of course, tomorrow is the Grand Prix of Monaco. Today was qualifying, so let's go for this satellite report from our colleague, Al Troutwig. Well, Lynn, nothing has changed here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There have been no qualifiers since we last left you, and back in the garage area already some of the celebration has begun, especially in the Penske garage. Rick Mears and his wife, Chris, very, very happy as they begin their celebration, hoping that Rick indeed has the pole. The front row, well, they're happy about that, too. All Penske cars. First time in the history of the race an owner has done that. Now, for a final update on Pimlico, let's go to